don't say this enough as a Nintendo fan, as a person in general, and person who loves games, but Nintendo is the dominant force in this industry. It is the only innovator. It has the best hardware. It has the best classic lineup of games. It has the best online service, best hardware and software. Simply put, like, if you don't like Nintendo, you simply don't like video games in general. And as a result of that, like, we as a community really need to start pushing that idea into the mainstream, because I am getting sick and tired of people like Angry Joe coming out and trying to make excuses as to why they aren't playing Breath of the Wild, or why they're not playing Zelda or Mario or Fire Emblem or Metroid or whatever. Like, every single time these guys just make up some excuse to downplay the next big thing from Nintendo. It's some justification for it. They come up with some reason to bitch, whine, complain, and there are endless examples of this, right? You know, Sean Malmstrom, like, he's after 15 years of advocating for like a good new 2D Mario game with original assets that that is wholly original and doesn't hold itself to the New Super Mario Bros. Template. Like, we're going into the release of a brand new 2D Mario game, right? About over 15 years from the original New Super Mario Bros. Right? Like, this is a big deal, and yet this guy is trying to come out and say, like, oh, this game looks like crap, the music sounds terrible, it looks boring, it looks like it's for children, with no real self-awareness that he got into Mario when he was a child, like, with no self-awareness that, kids like playing these games too. And that is kind of the excuse that I keep hearing people bring up, is that, like, oh, kids don't actually like Nintendo, they're too busy playing on their phones, and they're too busy playing their Call of Duty, and that simply isn't true, honestly. And I think it's becoming more and more apparent. Like, I do think that, like, the community is running out of things to really talk about, right? Like, I think they're running out of things to complain and whine about in regards to just things they can weaponize against Nintendo. Like, the major third parties are dead, right? That's not coming back. The mature games or mature gamers thing is dead. Like, people are becoming more willing to advocate for more unique gameplay styles and more experimental visuals, right? And above all, like, I think Nintendo has had such a good lineup of games for the past 30 years. Like, I think it's going to be basically impossible for anyone to run out of Nintendo games, right? Because that's been, like, a narrative with the Switch for years, right? It's like, oh, I just have nothing to play. But, like, do you not have NSO? Do you not use the eShop? Do you not do this, that? Oh, I don't do that. I don't buy games digitally. I don't subscribe to online services. I don't do this, or this. And it just becomes downright laughable, especially when these same people advocate for Xbox Game Pass or Steam sales or whatever, or emulation, right? Like, it's a complete joke, like an absolute complete joke. And I have to wonder just how much longer the narrative can possibly prop itself up, because we are in this era where I think it's going to be very, very hard to continue to trick people into thinking that the Switch is about to be imminently replaced, because they've been doing this since 2018. Like, the Switch Pro became the Switch 2, and now that we're past, like, the halfway point for the PS5, it's safe to say that the Switch isn't going anywhere. It's not getting replaced. It's still handedly outselling the competition, and there's not really much that anyone can do to downplay it, because the narratives lobbied against this thing, that it's not powerful enough, that Nintendo can't support a console by itself, that, like, the rest of the industry is leaving it behind, like the Steam Deck is a major success that's going to put Nintendo out of business. Like, all these narratives are absolutely falling flat on their face. They cannot continue doing this. And more and more cracks are showing all the time, particularly with emulation. People are beginning to realize that people like RGT85 and Review USA are shills for these companies, and who, like, illegally pirate and sell Nintendo's games. Like, there are loopholes that people can use to get a hold of, like, old, like, 30-year-old Nintendo software on, like, through manufactured cartridges and stuff like that. Like, it's not what people say it is. It's not like people are playing, like, a better version of Tears of the Kingdom, like, day one on, like, their high-end gaming rigs. No, that's not true at all. It never was true. But, like, that's been the narrative for the past couple of years ago or so. Like when the argument between like Nintendo versus PC comes up, like every time people just say like, oh, PC can just emulate that, but that isn't true. Not at all, and nobody wants to admit it. And I really have to wonder just when this entire narrative is going to collapse. When the PC gamers when the steampunks are forced to acknowledge that like Valve cannot possibly compete with Steam. Valve cannot possibly compete with Nintendo, right? Valve puts out TF2, never puts out a sequel, never puts out another game like it, like never does anything else with the brand. It's been like stagnant for years. Meanwhile, Nintendo has been releasing Splatoon, gets us DLC, gets us expansions, gets us new games. Like Splatoon has been killing it lately, and in spite of like the massive shilling campaign for Overwatch, like I think Splatoon long term is going to be a way more viable property. And nobody believes me when I'm talking about this, just like nobody's believing me when I talk about how the Nintendo Cinematic Universe is going to be way bigger than anything Marvel ever did, right? Bigger and better than anything Marvel ever did. Like people are just kind of laughing at me, just like how they laughed at me when I said that the Wii U was successful and that success was going to carry over to the Switch, right? And the Switch is well on its way to becoming the best-selling console ever made, because of the Wii U and its popularity, because of the Wii and its success, because of the GameCube, because of the N64. These consoles that everyone just wrote off immediately that they know nothing about are a big part of why Nintendo has become the household name in gaming. The only company that is worth buying and playing today. The only company that is worth supporting in 2023. A company that I think has not only dominating video game, I think in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years, within my lifetime, it is going to be bigger than Disney. It is going to be like a multimedia empire that spans all these different franchises, all these different ideas. And there are going to be films. There are going to be anime series. There are going to be like, comic books. We have already seen that happen, right? And of course, like the video games are going to continue getting bigger, better, and just more grand and spectacular, right? It's so weird, being in 2023, seeing us get like a new WarioWare game so soon after the last one. In 2020, I think. When did Get It Together come out? We're getting like new WarioWare games. We're getting new Pikmins. We're getting like new Metroid games. Like more and more, we're seeing a lot of these niche Nintendo games, smaller budget, lesser known things become like phenomenally successful. And like the reasoning people give for like not being excited for them, like, oh, it's not a Wario Land game. Oh, it's not a Prime game. Oh, it looks like a 3DS game. Like the excuses are running out. When like someone like the BitBlock comes out and like attacks Dark Moon Remastered because, I wanted the first game. Like, just play the first game, bro. Like, it got re-released on 3DS. It's been re-released already. So what's the big deal? Like, it's like, what are you even complaining about, really? Like, Dark Moon is a great game. Like, why exactly do you get so angry whenever people bring up, like, whenever people bring up like how good that game actually is? It's frustrating, and it's something we've been dealing with like for a long time now. It's not just like because of like PlayStation, Xbox, Valve, iPhone fans, right? Nintendo has like destroyed the iPhone market, by the way. Like they have survived like the revolution of the iPhone, so that they aren't going anywhere. Like it was never about those step companies, right? Like it was about a bunch of man-children who could not accept that people like Nintendo software, that people like their hardware, that people like their games, that people like the company. And even now, I see people screaming on YouTube channels about how like Nintendo is an evil company and how they're like going to go bankrupt and how they're going to be acquired by Microsoft or something. And it just is simply never going to happen.